Hi, my name is Ann Searstead, and today I will be sharing with you how visual schedules can help students with autism. There are 5 main parts of this presentation. The first part is what are visual schedules. Next, I'll be sharing how to make a visual schedule, followed by how to use a visual schedule. Fourth, we'll talk about why you would want to think about using a visual schedule, and we'll finish off the presentation with some examples of some excellent visual schedules. So what are visual schedules? Basically, visual schedules are a great way to provide structure and predictability for individuals with autism spectrum disorders, and I think that you'll also find that they could be beneficial for just about anybody. Visual schedules visually display an order of events. They show concrete, simple to understand steps. On the right side of the screen, you'll see what are visual schedules, how to make a visual schedule, how to use a visual schedule, why use a visual schedule, and examples. That is simply a visual schedule for this presentation so that you, the viewer, can follow along and know exactly where we are in the presentation. A visual schedule could be a line of pictures, objects, or text that represent different transitions. Visual schedules can look very different depending on a student's need. You could use a class-wide schedule for your entire classroom of students, or you may come up with a visual schedule that's more individualized for a student or a group of students. You could use a visual schedule for morning routines, a daily school-wide schedule for a specific assignment or task, or at home for after-school chores or nightly routines. Next is how to make a visual schedule. When you make a visual schedule, it's very important to first determine what the areas of need are. What is the student struggling with and that needs some more structure and an intervention to help? Then you would want to break down the problem area into several small steps, including breaks. Third, you'd want to include the student in the creation of the visual schedule if at all possible. And when I show you the examples, I'll give you some ideas of how you could include the student. Then you would want to determine the best visual format. Do you want to use pictures, words? Do you want to incorporate technology and download different applications to use a visual schedule? And lastly, you need to determine how to indicate when the task is complete. Would you use a pull-off technique where the task was fastened with Velcro where the student could take that task off? Would you want to have a check off like I used in the example? I checked off the task that we already completed. Would you have a completed pocket or an envelope where the student could take off that task and put it in the envelope or the pocket to show that they're completed? So now, how do you use a visual schedule? You would want to start by giving a standard phrase. So you would start with check schedule. That would then prompt the student to go to the visual schedule. You then would prompt the student to look at, or you could point to the very first activity. Then you would prompt the student to go to the location of that first activity, followed by prompting the student to begin the first activity. And then once that activity is completed, you'd want to then give the standard phrase once again, check schedule, and repeat the process to the next activity on the visual schedule. So why would you want to use a visual schedule? Visual schedules are evidence-based, meaning that there's been research and study to support them. Visual schedules can help increase independence in students, improve their behaviors, improve their flexibility, so they're more willing to change the routine or the typical pattern. Visual schedules can help with sequential processing. It helps students become familiar with routines and manage their transitions. It also helps a student become more organized. Visual schedules can also help with self-regulation skills. It helps students monitor, recognize, and respond to their own emotions and responses. Visual schedules can also help with generalizing school behaviors to home or school behaviors to the workplace to help get those behaviors across the board. It also helps the student understand expectations. Visual schedules can provide a great variation in setting and application. You could use them in a variety of different ways, and many visual schedules look very different. And that's up to the person making the visual schedule and to the student. You can really do with it what you want. My favorite part of visual schedules are that students can participate in the process. This is something that you can get their buy-in and they can become involved. They could help pick out the visuals. They could help make the visual schedule. And it's really a neat way to get the student involved. Now we'll be talking about some of the examples, and I'll be sharing them with you so that you can get a better idea of exactly what a visual schedule could look like and how you could use it in your classroom or with your students. So this first example is a text-based and visual schedule. It has the graphics and it also has the text. It's something simple. The student could cross off the task as they complete it and move on to the next one. This example is neat because it has a thumbtack with a movable arrow in the middle, and it allows the student or the teacher to move the arrow around the sequence of events to show completion of different tasks. The third example has Velcro strips with little cutouts of different tasks that allows the student to move the task up or down based on when it's completed. It's neat because this really helps with flexibility. As you can see, it's not a set in stone schedule. It can be changed each day, so that's really cool. The fourth example is using technology. This is a visual schedule app that's available on iTunes. It's neat for students that have technology such as an iPad or an iPhone. But parents or teachers could use this. You can set up timers. You can set it up with a calendar so that every Friday's schedule looks exactly the same. You can click on each task as it's completed and it gets deleted off of there so that the student has some satisfaction when they complete the task. And they can be used on a daily basis, weekly, monthly. There's really a lot of options with this one. This example is a first-then example of a visual schedule. It shows that once the student first completes the worksheet, then they get the computer time. So it's simple and neat to break down just a couple different tasks. The sixth example is a bookmark, and it lists all of the tasks for the day. That can be a good way at something small that every student in the class could have on their desk, or you could just use this with a few different students. But it's strictly, for the most part, pretty visual. So as you can see, this presentation, we've covered what visual schedules are, how to make a visual schedule, how to use a visual schedule, why you'd want to use visual schedules, and then shared some examples. So I hope that you found it helpful, and please let me know if you have any further questions. I'd be happy to talk more about it. Thank you.